I have to say, as a filmmaker, you probably don't know how a film is going to land until you're watching it with an audience, because this is a sequel. I wonder if that sort of gave you ammunition to know what you wanted to do differently or wanted to fine-tune with this character. Because there's certain things that land in this movie that are just awesome. Yeah. So I want your take on that, if the experience of the first one informed this one.
Yeah, it did, actually. Because it's interesting, when you do test screenings, which I hate, because the movie's not done at all. But, you learn so much from just watching the audience, and what they're looking for and when they're leaning in and what they expect of that particular film. And so when we were doing Equalizer 2, those things stuck with me. I never forget, there was a moment in the first one where the girl gets her ring back. And in the shooting of it, he goes and gets a hammer, and I never showed the audience what he did to the guy. That scored so high through the roof when she got her ring back. I remember them clapping, and I looked around and thought, wow.
You don't know that that's going to happen when you're shooting on the set.
I didn't know it was going to happen. And furthermore, when I would talk to people at the airport, wherever they would see me talk about the movie, they would say, man, what did he do to that guy with the hammer? They were so intrigued about what I didn't show them.
What they didn't show, yeah.
Yeah, so that taught me a lot about what they expect of Equalizer 2.
Cool. The other thing I wanted to ask you is I guess people, because of the certain movies that you've done so far, they always, when people talk about your work, they always gravitate towards the action because you do it so spectacularly. But one of the things that impressed me the most about this one is very well balanced character study, and the action works because you're invested in the characters.
Thank you.
So I wonder when you're there on the set, are the character scenes are equally important to you, or even more important to you, because you know that the action, you got that. So if you could talk about that.
Yeah, the character development is way more important than the action for me. And the action is something I just want to ground and get it right, and I want to make sure that that's a scene too. That has to be looked at like a dialogue scene. It's speaking to you in a different way.
It's not filler between the action. It's very much part of the story.
It's part of the story, and you got a guy who you have to care for or a guy you have to despise in order for that to be satisfying. Otherwise, it's just spectacle, right? It means nothing. So that's very important for me. When we did Training Day, it was like people talk about that as an action movie. It wasn't at all.
No, it's not at all.
You know what I mean? So I love.
There's some fireworks in there.
There's some fireworks in there, but it's not. So I love acting. I love characters, man.
All right. So even so, we said you're good, you got the action, but when I was given that I'm from Puerto Rico, when you got to the end, and it's like he put himself in a corner in the sense that now, because of what happened last year, everybody knows what a hurricane looks like and what a hurricane feels like.
I know.
So you got like people like, so that worry about you to make it real and as authentic as what you've done throughout the whole movie. You can't make it like a, like a CGI spectacle.
Yeah, it was really, because I had video with me all the time of hurricanes. And I kept saying, people know what hurricanes look like now. It was on TV all day, every day. So they're going to judge it based on that. You can't fool them. So doing visual effects, I kept saying we just have to make it feel as real as you can for a movie. And you got to make it so that it's not a Hurricane 5 or whatever. It has to be something that you believe people can move around in, but it's dangerous enough.
Yeah.
So it was that balance of that thing. So
making it believable. Yeah,
and there was times where, and we created those huge waves and stuff. I created all those waves because I needed the water to be real. So I was like,
that's practical. Then.
Yeah, make it practical. Wow. Yeah. So we had those huge jets blasting against those walls and flying over and all that stuff. So I was trying to make it I shot 75% of that is real, outside of what obviously you can look at and tell that you just
no, you can't actually, which is what impressed me, which is why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that one of the great thrills of working with Denzel, and you've done it several times and done it well, is that he manages to surprise you every single time and take you places you didn't expect. Do you recall, even though you've had that experience many times of being surprised, do you recall when a point in shooting this where you didn't expect that choice, or a scene in particular where he floored you, or does it happen every single day?
Yeah, it doesn't happen every day like that, but it happens. There's moments when he's with Miles in the projects. We talked about that, but that surprised me when he took the gun and then he started talking to Miles, because it was written differently. And then he put the gun to his head, and I was just I just let it ride to see where he was going with that, And it was so intense. I was like, I need to capture that. I got to cover that,
You did.
But that was the moment in the film that thing came out of him, because And I realized how important that was for him to say to these kids.
So my last question, if you could convince him to revisit another character that you greedily would want to direct another movie with Denzel with a prior character that he'd done before, would you be able to pick one, or do you like going new places with him and not
I would like to go somewhere new. I want him to play Latino. I want him to play Dominican.
I like when he said arroz con pollo. I
Yeah.
like it. Yeah, so I'm going to talk to him about
well,
that.
if you remember in Training Day, he's speaking Spanish to the little boy.
Yeah.
Every time I look at him, I'm going, I want him to be Scarface.
There we go. That would be awesome.
That's what I
All
want.
right, sir.
Thank you,
Nice
man.
talking.